he who will not risk cannot win. And I think in Israel we have enough people who are willing to take risks, so they come out. Not all of them win. 20th century socialism was very important. Okay, communism. There
Yeah.
was a large part of the world was socialist, but
Yep.
it's not ruling the world now. Okay, not now.
Yeah.
Why is it not ruling the world now? It's not ruling the world now because it failed. Okay?
Okay.
It doesn't work. That's the only thing that's wrong with it. It's beautiful. It's wonderful.
And what about the corona thing in the last 4 5 years?
Yeah, Corona was sad, but in itself, I don't think that Corona would cause an economic downturn.
Before moving a bit towards our economic related talk and all those economic related things, before we discuss about it, like I just wanted to know is what is your daily routine in this age that makes you fit and that makes you able to make a, I could say, like a healthy life.
What is my daily routine? That,
Yeah.
that's the question. Well, I usually get up around 7 and take a shower, and and then I say my prayers. Okay, and that usually takes about half an hour, and sometimes on special occasions it could take up to 40 minutes or so, 3/4 of an hour. And then I have sit down to have breakfast with my wife, um, which consists of some kind of cornflakes and bananas and milk and coffee. And recently we got a coffee machine, and so I don't like to, because the coffee machine makes very good coffee, uh, and I don't want to get used to having very good coffee. I want the very good coffee to be special. Okay, so I usually drink simply um, uh, usually freeze dried coffee, and but sometimes, once a day maybe, or twice a day, I drink from the coffee machine. All right, and then after the breakfast, I have various activities. Sometimes a lady comes over and does exercises with us, with my wife and me. Yes, she she's she exercises us, walking in step and doing this and lifting weights and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Okay.
And stretching out, all kinds of exercises. And sometimes I have to go out and do some shopping. But very often I just sit at home until about 11, or between 11 and 12, and then I doing working on the computer using my it's not a laptop, it's a whatever
home computer.
huh?
Home computer.
Yeah, the home computer. And then I say goodbye to my wife, and I get in my car and I drive to the university, and there I continue to work. So sometimes I give lectures and sometimes I listen to lectures. For example, today there was a lecture where I really didn't understand a single word. So I felt really bad about it. But after sitting there for half an hour and not understanding anything, nothing, yes, and the room was full of people. Yes, so younger people are apparently a lot more with it. So I just got up and walked out. But this was I had to think it over a little bit because it's a little offensive. It's not nice, yes, but but to sit there for an hour and a half and not understand anything. I thought that was too much. So I walked out. And sometimes I have podcasts like this one, or people come to visit me, like a former student um, who did a doctorate with me came in, and we had a short discussion. And so this way or that way. Right now, I'm preparing a lecture. I'm going to India next week, and
Okay.
it's right near Nepal.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to get to Nepal. Yes, I'm going to India next week, and I have to a conference, and I have to give a lecture there, and I'm preparing the lecture. So that's what I'm doing right now. So uh, so that's it. Okay. Next question.
So, do you still love giving lectures? Because I asked my professor about giving lectures, and they used to say that giving lecture is the most boring thing in the entire world. And they used to say that I do not want to give lecture. But hearing your words, I feel that you still love giving the lectures to new students. So, do you love it?
I what's the
Do you
question?
love giving lectures?
Do I like giving lectures? Well, what should I do? It's it's okay. That's how I make a living. Yes, that's I from the very beginning I made a living from doing research and giving lectures. By the way, there is I think a relationship between the two. That's in universities. You give lectures, you teach students, and you also do research, and
Yeah.
those are the two things that they do. And the question is, what? Why are those two related? And I think the answer is that. Um, well, you have to we have to educate our young people, so we have to teach. But to tie the teaching into the research is a good idea, because I think people who are actively involved in research, somehow they make better teachers, because they are sort of enthusiastic about the material. They are really into it. Yes. Um, I don't know. I don't think this has ever been studied, but that is the
Yeah.
accepted norm in the whole world, that to combine teaching and research. Of course, there are research organizations, for example, industrial research organizations that are not involved in teaching, and there are teaching like teaching colleges which where many of the staff do not do research, so that also works. But I think um, I think that combination seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. So after this, now I would like to little bit change my topic about the thing called game theory, the thing that gave you the Nobel Prize, what the world knows about you. So, in brief, for our audiences who do not know about the game theory, so can you please explain what actually is game theory?
Yeah, okay. Game theory is um, it's about games. Okay.
Yeah,
Now, what is a game? A game is a situation where you have a number of players. Yes. sometimes it's just two, like in chess or in football. But sometimes it's more than two, like in poker. Okay. Now, the defining characteristic of games is that people that there are several participants, and these participants interact with each other. Okay, they
Yeah.
interact with each other. So what each participant does affects all the other participants. Okay, and moreover, they are striving to different goals. Okay, there's now in a game like chess or Go, the goals are opposite, but they don't have to be opposite. Like in poker, where you can have 3 or 4 or 5 people playing poker, you can only be opposite to one person. You can't be opposite to two. Yes,
Yeah.
because if you are if you of course, if those two have the same goal, then you can be opposite to both. But if the two have different goals, you can't be opposite to both. So, and I think now, in addition to games, which are, well, you think of them seriously, but they're not terribly important. Okay, if I play a game of chess against somebody else,
Yeah.
it's important to me that I lose or win, but it's not terribly important. But in fact, all our life is a game. All our life is a game because we have our own goals, which
Yeah.
are different from the goals of other people. Okay. Now, a married couple could have the same goals, but usually my goal is different from your goal because I want to make a living for myself, and you want to make a living for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
now that is not opposite. You're making a living and my making a living is not opposite, but it's not the same either. Here, let me give you an example. Business. For example, suppose I want to sell my house to you. Okay. Now, when I'm selling my house, then um, I want as high a price as I can get from it, and
Yeah.
you want to pay as low a
Lower
price
price.
as you can get the house for. We both want the house to be sold. Yes, so it's not opposite. The goals are not opposite each other. Not like in chess. In chess, if one side wins, the other side loses. Okay, or both sides could be a draw. But there, the players have opposite goals. But by selling a house, they don't have opposite goals. They have similar goals. They want the house to be the buyer wants to buy the house, and the seller wants to sell the house. Okay. But the seller wants a higher price and the buyer wants a lower price. Okay. So the goals are different. All right. And I think in all of the whole economy of a country or of a community is consists of people each striving to promote his own goals, okay, but at the same time there's a lot in common with all the players. So those situations are called games, okay. And when we talk about game theory, we talk about an analysis of that kind of situation. What you should do to promote your own goals, taking into account that the other players are doing what they can do to promote their goals. Okay?
Yeah. If the global economy is a game that we
Yeah.
are playing, so who do you think are the main players of the game and who is winning here?
You know, the moment you realize that a game is not, people are striving to different goals, but the goals are not opposite. Okay? They're not
Yep.
opposite. So the word winning is not in place. Winning is in place when you have opposite goals, okay?
Okay.
Then, like in chess, you can say black wins or white wins, or it's a draw, okay?
Yeah.
But in an economy, you can't say who is winning it, okay? Like in the example I gave, in the example of the house, yes? Uh, uh, both players win as soon as the house is sold because the
Yep.
buyer bought a house and the seller sold the house, and the seller wanted to sell it and the buyer wanted to buy it. Okay,
Yep.
you could say if the seller got a high price and he won the game, but that's wrong. Yes, because the buyer was willing to pay that price. Okay,
Yep.
so there's no winner or loser in most games. Yes, especially the games that are about economics. There's no winner or loser. There is a game is being played, and I now, to get back to your question, I think one could say that the main players, I think, in the world economy now, it's for many years now. The main player has been the United States. Okay.
Yep.
Uh, but I think recently, in the last few years, China is coming up with is playing an important role in the world economy. So those are the main players. But I think the question of who will win or who will lose, I don't think that's a meaningful question. And I think I hope that. Um, that the China and America and all the other players, um, all the other countries, and all the other nations or corporations or economic bodies are not necessarily countries. Will do what we do when we buy a house. Okay.
Yep.
In other words, everybody will be happy. They'll get the seller is happy because he sold the house, and the buyer is happy because he bought the house. And some people will be, but to think of it as a conflict is, I think, a mistake.
So currently, if we hear the news and if we follow the economic trends, the world is in economic recession right now. So what are your views regarding to it?
I ask my wife every morning. I told you that we sit down after we say our prayers. We sit down and have some coffee, and then my wife looks at her cell phone. I say to her, Batya, what's new in the world? And she looks at her cell phone and she tells me what's new in the world. But she didn't tell me about a world recession. So I have to go home and scold her that she didn't tell me about that recession. Yes. Wait a minute. I have another source of information, and that's my assistant, Orly Brook. And let me ask her right now whether she has heard of a world recession. Have you heard? No. So Orly, neither Batya, my wife, nor Orly, my assistant, told me that there is a recession in the world. Yes. So I think even if I would have been listening to TV or radio, which I haven't been doing. I get all my information mostly from Batya, but there's some information from Orly also. And they didn't tell me about this, so I don't know what to tell you. And you know, even if they would have told me about it, I'm a theorist, and I publish papers about theory and explain economics in general, and sometimes game theory, and I've even lately gotten into neuroscience, but I don't know about a recession. I can't help you because nobody told me about it, and even if they had told me, I wouldn't be able to give you an educated answer. For that, you have to be. You see, there are two kinds of economists. There are economists that examine what's going on a day-to-day basis, macroeconomists, and there are people who do the theory, and the macroeconomists who investigate what's happening in the world. They use the theory, and hopefully the theory will work, but we don't know about that. You have to ask me theoretical questions. I don't know about a recession. I don't know about a recession, and I didn't hear about it. And I'll ask my colleagues, okay?
Yeah.
But I haven't heard about it.
Okay. I would just divert my question a little bit towards the theoretical part then. So, do you think that in any economy, economic downfall is necessary?
No, no, I don't see why. I remember a friend, um, a colleague and a friend. Yes, he was a very good friend. His name was Herbert Scarf, a very prominent economic theorist, but also he was also, unlike me, he was also interested in what's going on in the world. Okay, and he told me at one point that when there is a recession like that, we've had that recession. We had, for example, we had the crisis of 2008.
Yep.
Okay, I don't know. You're probably too young to remember that, but that was a very important crisis.
Yeah.
And we had a depression, which is now almost 100 years old, of the 1930s. This was very severe. Also, 2008 was severe. Now, my friend Herbert Scarf was a prominent economist. He said that this was due to natural causes. There were droughts, and there were, and when you have a natural downturn, you have a series of droughts, or you have other kinds of weather problems, or then you could have a downturn. Yes, that's what Herb Scarf said. But I think the crisis of 2008 shows that it doesn't necessarily have to be, it does not have to be because of natural causes. You can have a downturn uh, be, because of other things. Now, the 2008 crisis was caused by economic reasons. Yes, in other words, if I recall correctly, what they had was they made borrowing easier. Okay,
Yep.
the banks made borrowing easier, and as a result of that, there was a big upturn in house construction. Okay, getting a mortgage became easier. there's a name for it, but I've forgotten the name.
Okay.
And then people defaulted. Okay, people and there was a lot of construction on the because of the borrowing became easier. There was a lot of construction, and people defaulted on their loans, and there was housing prices dropped below the level that had been before that, and the whole economy came apart. And this was economic reasons, not natural reasons. Okay.
And what about the corona thing in the last 4 5 years?
Yeah, Corona was sad, but in itself, I don't think that Corona would cause an economic downturn. I don't see why it would cause an economic downturn. I think governments spend money which they didn't have, so they had to print some money, and prices went up. But in itself, the corona was not very deadly. Yes, was not very. It was scary.
Yep.
Yes, but I think here again. I'm not I'm not familiar with the real numbers, but my impression was that relatively few people died from corona. So you had probably considerably less than 1% of the world population, maybe even 1 promille. Okay, uh,
Yep.
uh, and we didn't. It was a problem at the time, but I think the inoculations. What's it called? Um, it, there were developed inoculations that prevented people from getting the disease, and and so that was. I think it did not make a big
Okay.
dent in the world economy.
Yep. So if we look at the world's economy right now, so what I see the major problem is that the billionaires, the people with high number of money, they are actually getting rich day by day, and whereas problems are just going to the ordinary people. So has our economic system been failed?
I'm not sure that that's accurate. Yes, uh,
Yeah, because
the,
common people
the,
are
the,
suffering a lot.
so that in other words, you're saying that uh, that there are poor people, yeah, and there are
Yeah.
very poor people, and there are rich people, and there are very rich people. Okay, but there's a large middle class. Yes. And I don't think it's getting any smaller, and I don't think the poor people are getting poorer. I don't think that's true. Yes, I think that if you look back 100, 200 years, then people worked much harder and than they do nowadays. Here again, I don't want to make any definite statements because I'm not familiar with the figures. Yes, I don't. I'm not that kind of economist, but I don't think that's. I don't think that's true that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer as compared to previous. I think altogether the seems to me that the world economy is.
But I feel that economy is quite depressing right now.
All right, let's agree to disagree. One of my,
Yeah.
if you looked at all at my oeuvre, at my work, yes, uh, the paper that has gotten the most citations among my papers, yes,
Yeah.
I think over 40,000 citations, something like that.
Okay.
Yes, is a paper called "Agreeing to Disagree." Okay, so let's agree to disagree about that. All right. And I think the economy is in good. You asked me about game theory. Okay, you
Yep.
asked me about game theory. Now, a question that you didn't ask me, and which therefore I'll ask myself. Okay, and that
Okay.
is, what is, can you give a one principle that underlies almost all of game theory? One principle that is very, very basic, very important. Yeah, and if you ask me that question, I would give the answer yes. And that principle is incentives. Okay, the importance of incentives. All right, and that is, in other words, you want to be able to you want you you want a situation where people have an incentive to work, have an incentive and that's what makes the economy go around. And I say this because the 20th century, yes, uh, um, in the 20th century, socialism was very important. Okay, communism. There
Yeah.
was a large part of the world was socialist. In other words, um, people did not. The, the underlying motto of socialism is to each according to his needs, from each according to his ability. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, it sounds wonderful. Okay, it sounds great.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful idea, and I subscribe to it with both hands. All right, it's wonderful. I think it's really very, very fair, not to let the rich get richer and not to let the poor get poorer. From each to each according to his needs, and from each according to his ability. All right. Now that is socialism, and it ruled the world in much of the 20th century. But
Yep.
it's not ruling the world now. Okay, not now.
Yeah.
Why is it not ruling the world now? It's not ruling the world now because it failed. Okay?
Okay.
It doesn't work. That's the only thing that's wrong with it. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I'll hang it on the wall and look at it and worship it and say, but it doesn't work. And the
Yep.
reason it doesn't work is because people do not have incentives to work, and to the people with ability do not have an incentive to use that ability. Okay.
Yeah.
And because why? Because from each according to his ability. So you take from each person, but you don't give him according to his ability. Okay. So why
Yeah.
should he work? Why should he? So he doesn't work. Okay. And this was, now you live in Nepal, and I was in Vietnam in 10 or 15 years ago. I visited Vietnam, and in Vietnam, in the middle of I think it was 1981 or something like that, in August, or 1982, sometime in the 1980s, the government decided that it is going to it is going to stop uh, um, the socialist policy. It is going to allow private investment. And in fact, the government continued to be communist, but the private enterprise was permitted, as it was in China, by the way, in 79 already, before Vietnam. But so suddenly people had an incentive to use their ability to work, okay? And that made the economy blossom. So socialism has a beautiful motto, and I subscribe to it with both hands. But the only thing, the one small thing that's wrong with it is it doesn't work. Okay.
I actually wanted to share you one experience from my country. Here in Nepal, what it is happening is that for the last 20 to 25 years, the government is giving incentive for people who are above 65 years, some indigenous tribes, and some groups here, and it is going pretty successful here. So incentive can work in some places also, I guess.
An incentive is a situation where if you do something, you want to give me an incentive to do something, all right? So in that case, you will say, well, if you do this, okay, which I want you to do, then you you will reward me. Okay, that's an incentive. An incentive is not just giving money. Yes, an incentive is giving money in order which is predicated on your doing something. All right, that's an incentive. An incentive, for example, an incentive for people to work is to give them wages when they work. When a boss wants his workers to work, he pays them for it. So that's called an incentive. An incentive to eat is hunger. Hunger
Yep.
is an incentive to eat. Yes, a an incentive for the heads of corporations sometimes get shares of stock. Okay, if they now as part of as a bonus. Okay, now so they this gives them an incentive to make the company successful, because if the company is successful, then the stock will go up. Yes, all
Yep.
right. But an incentive is not just giving money to people. Yes, to be, if they give money to people over 65, that's not an incentive.
Yep.
It's
uh
also
few moments you talked that socialism has failed in 21st century. So I read one article around 1 or 2 weeks ago, and one economist said that there will be again coming a time where socialism will revive. Will it happen?
No.
No.
No, no. Well, I don't. Well, maybe no. Let me take that back. Okay, it might happen because people forget. All
Yeah.
right, people forget, and we have that here in Israel also. Okay, people forget the past, and the same. So I take it back. I think it will return. It will return because people make the same mistakes again and again and again and again. Okay, so I think you have people forgot what it's not a very transparent process. Okay, the
Yeah.
reason that socialism failed is not transparent. It's nicer to think to each according to his needs, from each according to his ability. That's nicer. It speaks to people. It's okay. I think yes, and answer to your question, I take back my previous answer. I think yes, it will return, and it will return because people forget.
So the reason why I asked you this question is because when I look over internet and hear the views of youth from today's generation, so they generally do not trust the present economic models. So that was the reason I asked you about this question. So are they actually justifying it, or as you said that, like, they are actually not aware about the previous mistakes?
Repeat, yeah, I think it may very well, yes, because people forget, and there'll be a revolution, yes, and yeah, I think yes, yeah, people will people have a tendency to forget, and this basic principle of socialism is very attractive.
Yep.
Okay, it's very attractive. Okay, so people forget the disasters that it caused. Okay, and it really did cause disasters. Yes, I mean, look for example at the Soviet Union, which was a disaster. I mean, in the later years maybe less so, but under Stalin it was terrible. Yeah,
Yeah.
and also Cambodia. Okay,
Mm.
Cambodia was a socialist enterprise, and this was awful. It was millions of people were killed. Uh, so so uh, s- so I think when you have a central government, okay, very centralized. All the economic activity, all the economic enterprise is with one government. Then this is an invitation to disaster, and that's what socialism was. It was a disaster, and I think you're right. People will forget that, and they will be attracted by uh, the outward glitter
Yep.
of socialism, and yeah, I think you're right.
So another thing that I wanted to ask you is, like, the developing small economic countries, just like there are Nepal and other countries, especially in this Asian region. So what do you think that they should play a role in making a sustainable economy for the future, like the developing countries?
I think many of the countries in Asia are doing quite well. I mean, India, China. I think Nepal. Is there an economic problem in Nepal?
Kind of.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I
Okay,
don't.
so
Uh,
yep.
I think that a market economy is the answer. Yes, a market economy is the answer. Uh, and decentralized market economy that is the answer. Uh, that's the answer I suggest. Yes. Now you have to have some regulation and so on, but in principle, it should be decentralized. Yeah.
Like, since my childhood, like, what I have been hearing is the economic models of Israel. We used to also study in our school textbook about it, like how Israel made sure that their country gets developed within a very short period of time. So what do you think that countries like ours should learn from Israel uh, in order to develop in a rapid manner?
You know, I'm an Israeli,
Yep.
okay, and I have uh, uh, naturally, I have an Israeli passport, okay? But I grew up in the United States, okay? I came to Israel in 1956. So
Okay.
that's when Israel was 8 years old, still a child, okay?
Yeah.
And but I have not given up my American citizenship. So I carry an American passport also, in addition to my Israeli passport. I usually travel on the Israeli passport, but I have an American passport also. Now, in the American passports, um, it's a very interesting document because on every page of the passport, there is a quote
Yep.
from some famous American on the top, just as a sort of a decoration for the background of that page. On the page, you put visas, okay, and stamps and so on and so forth, okay.
Yeah.
But on the top, there's a little line, okay. Uh, and on uh, one of the pages of the Israeli passport, there's a quote from John Paul Jones, who was an important figure in the American Revolution in 1776. And he said, there, the quote is, there is an inexorable law of nature. Yes. He who will not risk cannot win.
Okay.
Okay. He who will not risk cannot win.
Cannot win.
And I think in Israel we have enough people who are willing to take risks, so they come out. Not all of them win,
Yeah.
but there are enough winners, and they figure out where they should go, and that, I think that is an answer where I don't know the complete answer. We do have a very successful economy. We have
Yeah.
a very successful systems, yeah, educational systems, yes, and we have people who are constantly opposed to what the government is doing. So it's very active.
Yeah.
And that makes, I think, the country is in an uproar all the time. Also, we are faced with very, very serious challenges. Yes, because all are. So we have to stand up. We have to live up to those challenges. Okay.
Yep. So now I would like to talk a little bit about personal things. So for a student who is at the age of 20 to 25, like, what piece of economic advice you would like to give to them to improve their life economically?
A lot of people ask me what I advise people to do to to uh, to uh, to advance themselves. Okay, younger children. The children ask me, "What should I do? What profession should I take? What should I go into?" And um, and the answer I give to all of them, and I'll give that to you also. Okay,
Yep.
that is, do what you like to do. Okay, don't do it because other people have succeeded in it. Don't do it because it sounds attractive, it sounds profitable, yes?
Yeah.
But do what you like, okay?
Sure.
Do what you like. And the reason for that is that what you like to do, you do well, okay? What you like, for example, I told you I was in Nepal in 98, and in '01 or '02, I don't remember. Yes, and
Yep.
that's because I've almost from the first, from as soon as I grew up. Yes, was 19 or 20 or 18. I like to climb. Okay.
Yeah.
Frankly, I never got to be very good at it, but I like to climb. Okay, so that's what I do, and I carry that on into old age. Okay, so do what you like to do.
Yeah.
What make a living if you like to give podcasts. Okay, if you like what you're doing, and then you should continue with that because that is what you do well, what you like to do.
Yeah. A great advice. Yeah.
Don't listen to your parents. Don't listen to your teachers. Listen
Yeah.
to yourself. Okay?
Okay.
To thine own self be true.
And so, since we are at the very end of our show, so I wanted to ask about the game theory once again. Is that can we use game theory in other things also, such as love, relationship, all those kind of things?
No, no, no.
Okay.
Because game theory is figuring out strategically how to win. Okay.
Yeah.
For example, by giving incentives or things like that. Yeah. And no, in interpersonal relationships, including romantic ones, yes. Uh, you don't use game theory. Be sincere. Be yourself. Be
Okay.
yourself. Don't try to figure things out. Just let your mind and your body do what they think is right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So before I finally end my show, I want to ask you final question is like, if you had one power to change something in the global economy to make it better for every people, what would you do?
There's one thing. I'm not going to give a direct answer to that question, but there is one thing that that really disturbs me, and that is that from the beginning of history,
Yep.
and really from the beginning of history, for thousands of years, yes, going back 2, 3 thousand years, uh, the one thing that has uh, really been a constant in the world, yes. It's not socialism, it's not capitalism, it's not decentralized, not centralized. Not the one thing is that um, people have fought each other. They're war. War is a constant of history. For 3,000 or 4,000 years, ever since the beginning of history, people have fought wars.
Yeah.
Okay? And I don't see why it's necessary to fight wars. Yes. Now, why are people all the time fighting with each other and killing each other? And I think over there, um, I think over there, uh, I think the incentives should be fixed. I mean, they should. I don't know what you have to think very very carefully about incentives,
Yeah.
and if incentives for making war, and you have to try to use that idea of incentive. I'm not going to go into it now, but my Nobel lecture was devoted to that topic. And we have to try to stop war. And I don't see why people are killing each other all the time. I think it's terrible. Okay, but and I think we should really use the idea of incentive to stop wars.
Oh,
Okay.
wonderful. Definitely. What a wonderful thing that you said. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you, Professor Aumann, for your time. So,
My pleasure, and good luck to you, and a lot of success to you. And
thank you.
it was a pleasure talking to you.